Hello everyone, this is David Tanenbaum, and I'm here to talk to you about Terry Riley's wonderful set of pieces called Dias de los Muertos for guitar and percussion, which I'll be playing for the San Francisco Contemporary Music Players with James Buton on November 16th. I moved out to the Bay Area in 1976, almost 50 years ago, and I was on the prowl for new guitar music. So I had been asking a lot of composers for pieces. I met Terry Riley out here as he was a big figure in the Bay Area already. And I went to several of his concerts. We became friendly. And I started to nudge him for some guitar music. You know, some composers have been cranky at my nudging. I really remember some of the responses from Lou Harrison, who would just scowl at me and tell me to stop asking, before he eventually broke down and dedicated his last piece to me. But that took many years. In Terry's case, it also took many years. But he never got cranky. He would just gently say, not feeling that one. And so initially that went on for a decade. Then the story shifts to a county fair in the foothills of the Sierra where Riley was living with his family. And specifically to his son, Gian Riley, who was probably 12 at the time, something like that. Gian won a raffle at that fair. And as a prize for winning the raffle, he got a nylon string guitar and 4 paid guitar lessons. So he went to take those in Nevada City with a local teacher named Jamie Belizzi. And he got to the 4th lesson, came in and said, you know, I'm just not feeling the guitar. I'm not practicing. I don't think it's the instrument I want to pursue. Now that turned out to be really not the case in the sense that Gian has gone on to a brilliant career as a guitarist. But at that point, he wasn't feeling it. And so Jamie said, you know what, since you're not going to take any more lessons, let's just spend the hour where I'll just play for you my favorite guitar repertoire. You can sit back and relax, and then we're done. And to his everlasting credit, Jamie must have played very well, because suddenly Gian had that guitar obsession that so many of us have had. He started playing the guitar all the time. He got back to lessons. He was listening to CDs. And it was not long after that, in the early 90s, that Terry called and said, you know, my life is suddenly surrounded by the guitar. And I'm thinking maybe the time has come for me to write something. So I commissioned Terry to write a first piece through the Augustine String Foundation. He wrote a wonderful piece called Ascension. He started out with a piano improvisation he had done at a concert some years before and then expanded upon that. And we edited it, I premiered it, I recorded it, played it on my travels. Was very happy with this wonderful solo guitar piece by Terry Riley and thought, okay, that was great. Then the phone rang again and Terry said, I don't think I'm done with the guitar. And in fact, I have an idea. I want to write a set of guitar pieces, even a book of guitar pieces. And I want to write one for each letter of the Spanish alphabet to think about the Spanish heritage of the guitar. And I've made up a word that has an A in it and a Z in it, and we're going to call it the Book of Abayazud. So at this point, it's best for me to read to you what Terry wrote about the project in general and the Book of Abayazud. The Book of Abayazud, an invented word, is a planned series of 28 pieces comprised of works for the guitar, either solo or in combination with other instruments or other guitars. All the pieces have Spanish titles and take a different letter of the alphabet to begin their names. They are indebted to the great Spanish music traditions and to those traditions upon which Spanish music owes its heritage. So then I commissioned a second solo piece called Barabbas. The commission was done through the Bath Guitar Festival in England, and played that and loved it. And then Terry just kept on going, and he started writing for Gian, and just more and more pieces started to come up. And then in 1997, he wrote these Dias de los Muertos pieces. And again, I'm going to let Terry describe them to you in his inimitable way. The mood and atmosphere of the Dias de los Muertos, written at the end of 1997, are reflections on how death approaches its subject. There was a phrase from one of Carlos Castaneda's books that has stuck with me, where Don Juan informs Carlos that he should be alert because death is always waiting, perched on his shoulder. In the first piece, death appears innocently in the afternoon, presumably on a day whose course had started out in a more optimistic direction. In the case of the second piece, death appears in black fishnet stockings, whose music is one of my personal favorites. Our subject experiences a shocking surprise ending instead of the promised seduction. The idea was inspired by a private concert I gave for a certain American holy man, whose female devotees were exposing lots of bare belly and navel, and whose lovely legs were encased in the aforementioned attire. For me, at that moment, a rainbow link occurred between death and seduction. These pieces are exotic, spirited, wonderful, uplifting, and a whole lot of fun to play. But what are pieces based on death doing in a concert called Exuberance? I think it has to do with the way Terry Riley himself is approaching death. I remember, first of all, when he turned 70, he and I did a duo tour of Japan for 3 weeks. And at the end of those 3 weeks, we were both quite exhausted. And Terry said, the next time around, I'm going to go from 69 to 71 because this celebrating is exhausting. Terry is living in Japan now, and he just turned 90. So this concert is our way of celebrating his birthday. A couple of years ago, he wrote a piece called The Holy Liftoff. And here's what he had to say about that piece. I'm 88. I'm very acutely aware that it's the end period of my life now. I'm going to lift off too, in the not too distant future. I'm looking forward to that.